Hi everybody, I am so excited to be this season's guest on Staying Salty. My name is Aimee Lecointre. I'm 32 years old, and like many of you and everyone on the channel, I have cystic fibrosis.
I got cystic fibrosis. See, I've got cystic fibrosis.
I'm sure many of you can relate when I say that CF is not who I am as a person. It does not define me. And it is a big part of my life, a bigger part than I would like it this time, but such is life. And while it doesn't define me or it's not who I am, it has played a role in who I am and the person that I'm becoming. And some of my best qualities I know are because of the battles and fights I've had to fight because of CF. And so in that way, I am thankful for CF. I am a wife, a daughter, a sister, a friend, a cousin, an auntie, which might be my favorite. I have two adorable, squishy little pugs, and an adorable little cat who's also a little on the squishy side. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner, a registered yoga teacher, and I just am truly passionate about giving back to the CF community, whether that be through nutrition or just motivating people with CF to move and take action in their lives in ways that can benefit their health that's outside of what our doctors prescribe, because it's so much more than just treatments and medications. It's also little steps we can take in our everyday lives to support better health. I was diagnosed when I was 2 weeks old. I was life flighted from the hospital where I was born to the nearby children's hospital because the doctors where I was born were really concerned. I was sick, lots of coughing, failure to thrive, and I had an intestinal blockage. Thankfully, the blockage resolved on its own, didn't require surgery, but I ended up being hospitalized, I think, for about 2 months before I was sent home with my parents. And I'm so thankful that my parents just let me live a normal life. I mean, as normal as possible considering whatever normal is. But I grew up going to public school and camping and fishing, and I was in dance and gymnastics. I was on a bowling league at one point. And I just never really felt different. There were obviously specific instances where it was like clear that I was different because of CF. I mean, we're all different for a lot of reasons, but specifically CF. But it wasn't like all the time. And so for that, I am just really thankful that that's the experience I had growing up. I was hospitalized at least once a year growing up, and a large part of that was because the clinic I went to, back then it was routine to be admitted for a 2-week hospital stay for IV antibiotics, whether you had an exacerbation or not. And it was just thought that if we did this, it was a way to keep on top of CF and the exacerbations. And obviously we've learned a lot more about things like antibiotic resistance, so that's changed. That was just normal back then. There were sometimes some years where I was admitted more than once because I did end up getting sick or having an exacerbation. But my biggest struggle growing up, at least from my perspective, was my weight. And in the 4th grade, I had a feeding tube placed, and that sucker stuck around for 8 to 9 years. I did not love it by any means at the time. I really struggled with it a lot at times. But looking back, of course, I can say that I'm grateful for it, because I know that without it, I definitely would have struggled more growing up. I think I would have encountered a lot more health challenges, and I definitely would not have the health that I do now if I didn't have a feeding tube. Thankfully today, I seem to be able to manage my weight fairly easily without a feeding tube, without needing any extra nutritional supplements. And as an adult, specifically the last 2 years, my biggest struggle has been with CF-related arthritis. So I know that not everyone knows that this is a thing, but it is. So if you are having joint pain and you haven't told your CF doctors because you think it's unrelated, it is worth bringing up to them. I've personally dealt with this for, 16, 17 years now, but it hasn't been until the last 2 years where it's gotten really bad to the point that it can be debilitating. Thankfully, right now I'm feeling pretty okay, but the treatments that we'd been using are no longer working effectively, so I am in the process of being referred to a rheumatologist, so hopefully they can help. I thought it'd be kind of fun to share a little bit what it was like for me growing up with CF. Because things are definitely different nowadays. This was a time before we realized the potential dangers of people with CF interacting and hanging out in person. So I grew up going to CF camp every summer for a week. There would be 6 to 8 of us in a cabin, like 20 of us in the same room doing breathing treatments, and all of us sitting around the campfires, hanging out in the main lodge for meal times and different activities. And it was truly like one of my favorite memories about growing up with CF. It was a lot of fun, and although, as I mentioned, I didn't feel different often because I had CF growing up, I truly just felt, I don't know, like I could just be me at CF camp. It was just kind of a relief to be around so many other people who also had to do breathing treatments and take medications and go to the hospital. You know, it's really just comforting and sort of empowering to be around other people who truly get what it's like to live with CF. CF camp was also the first time, my second year to be exact, where it really truly hit home just how serious CF could be. I knew that it could be deadly. I knew that people died because of complications due to CF, but I had never known anyone personally. But every year at CF camp, we had this ceremony where we would plant trees in memory of those who had passed since the previous year's camp. And so that second year, when I actually knew people who had passed, it was just it was earth-shattering to know that last year, these people, these kids were here at camp and hanging out and playing games and running around with the rest of us, and in a matter of 1 year, their health had declined, and ultimately they passed away because of this awful disease. So that was a really difficult realization. But overall, I did love camp. It was a lot of fun. I still talk to some people that I went to camp with. And, it kind of just makes me sad that we have these precautions, obviously for good reasons. I wish there was no reason that we needed to have these precautions, because that sort of sense of community, I feel like it's just so important. I also grew up with a best friend who had CF. Her name was Heather. And we would try to plan our yearly hospital stays at the same time. And when we could succeed at that, we would also try to get these 2 rooms that were not only next to each other, but the shared wall had a door that could slide open. So it was essentially like we were in one big hospital room. We would sit in the same bed to do our breathing treatments. And at the time, the RTs were probably thinking like, yes, 2 for 1. Because it seems like everyone in the hospital is always running behind. But when this topic comes up with RTs today who were not working back then, they're like, what? That was like a thing? And they don't realize that there was a time that existed where we weren't aware of these potential dangers of people with CF hanging out. So when all that ended, for good reason, I struggled because I had this community and these people who got it and who truly got me, and suddenly it was just like, we can't hang out. Admittedly, I still would hang out with my friend Heather. I went to middle school with another girl who had CF. We never really avoided each other like we probably should have. And even today, I will sometimes meet with other people in person. We'll take certain precautions. But to me, I think especially having grown up in that time, it's really important to me to have that sense of community. And so when social media became a thing and we were able to develop this sense of community online, that was really exciting, and I think it's really empowering. And so I'm glad that we have at least, this way to connect with one another. And I think it's just really important to have that support. So I'm so excited to share this all with you, and I hope you guys enjoyed it and maybe learned a little bit about me, and I will see you again in another video soon. Thank you.